Welcome to part 3 of a series that I like to call Getting the Miami Heat a Big Man. Yes! On almost every video I post, I get a ton of comments saying, this is irrelevant, just get the Miami Heat some size. Well, that's what I'm doing in this 3-part video, so make sure to like and comment your thoughts to help boost the algorithm, but most importantly, subscribe, because I'm on the grind to hit 5K subs by the start of next basketball season, and I hope y'all enjoy the video. Peace out. And in part 3, we're going to talk about guys that the Heat can get in the draft. Now, the Heat pick at number 15 in the first round and number 43 in the second round. I actually already did a whole draft series where I ranked the top 5 guys that I'd like to see the Heat target in the first round. Now, I only had one big man in there. It was Kel'el Ware. And again, I got a bunch of comments saying, what about this guy? What about this guy? The Heat needs size. Well, that is what we're going to get into today. Now, I did rank these guys from an order of how much I like them to how much I would not like them on the Miami Heat. And the first one's going to be controversial because I'm going to start with the big boy, Zach Edey, who has been projected literally everywhere. 2 months ago, he was projected to not get drafted. Then he was a second-round guy. Then he was a lottery guy. You got, what's his name, Rasheed Wallace saying that he should be the first pick in the draft. He's been projected literally everywhere. Some player comps, if you're not familiar, Ivica Zubac, Boban Marjanovic, that alone almost tells you everything you need to know. He went to college for 4 years at Purdue, so he's 24 years old. But this is the reason why people love him. He's 7'4", with a 7'11" wingspan, coming in at 300 pounds. So the boy is big, literally. But at Purdue, in his senior season, he played 32 minutes a night, won the player of the year, I think, again, back-to-back seasons. But in his last season, he averaged 25 points per game, 12 boards, over 2 blocks. And yeah, what did he shoot from the free throw line? People like to see that from a big man. He shot 71%. So he's a reliable free throw shooter as well. And I guess I should mention from the field, he shot 62% as well. Now, I already did a whole video about Zach Edey. Now, in fact, I'll eventually have a whole video out about all of these guys where I really dedicate a lot of time getting into it. So make sure y'all check that out. Some of them may have been released. Some of them haven't. I don't know. I'm recording a lot of this in advance here. But the reason I don't like Zach Edey is because he is slow as all hell. And I don't think any of his skill sets can really translate to the NBA when you're that slow. I think he's going to get abused as a defender. I think it's going to kill all fast break opportunities and really slow down the team, which I think the Heat are already too slow as it is. One of the things that I want to see is I want to see them get faster. That's not going to happen with Zach Edey. And I don't even think he really projects as a starter because fit-wise there'd be a lot of questions. Obviously, Zach Edey's not a spacer. Neither is Jimmy and Bam, but he's just, I'm not super high on him. Now, I don't want to sit here and say that, oh, he's Taco Fall, right? Because initially that's what a lot of people might think. Oh, he's a tall guy that's not super athletic. Taco. No. Taco Fall was not skilled whatsoever. He was like a 30% free throw shooter on all of his forms. Sometimes Taco shot like this. Sometimes he shot like this. Not a good free throw shooter. Zach Edey at least has a very nice form on his shot, hence the decent free throw numbers here. He has very, very nice touch around the rim. He's much more coordinated than Taco Fall, so there is some skill sets there, right? He's a guy that you can get the ball to in the post, and he has a reliable jump hook. He could spin over the left shoulder. He could spin over the right shoulder. That's why he'll get a lot of nice bounces because of his soft touch. And at most big men, let alone a 7'4" big man, it's very hard for them to get such a light touch on the rim, and he has that. So he does have an ability to score in the post, but that's about it, really. That's kind of where the abilities lie. And obviously in today's NBA, there's really nobody getting post touches anymore. You could say, oh, well, if you have Edey, have him abuse the mismatches, you could, but I just think he would get cooked quite as often on the other end as well, because he's not a great defender. He obviously is a great shot blocker, but I do feel like nowadays, obviously, teams will be able to stretch him out to the perimeter and kind of abuse him in that way. But yeah, I'm not super high on Zach Edey. I mean, he could pass out of a double team. He's an okay passer. He's got high IQ. But outside of all that stuff and everything else I mentioned, I don't think he projects well as a great NBA player. Maybe he projects as literally Boban's career. Had a couple spots where he played 10 to 15 minutes a night, but for the most part, he's out of some rotations. And I'm not super high on Zach Edey for that reason. Now, another option Another very popular one is the Mr. Dookie, Kyle Filipowski. He's projected as a late first-round pick, so a little bit after where the Heat are slotted. He's got some player comps of Isaiah Hartenstein, who's about to get a bag. Mo Wagner, who I really like a lot. We talked about him in part 2 or part 1. I forget, but the one about guys getting traded, I think that was part 1. We talked about Mo Wagner, and then Zach Collins is another player comp for Filipowski here as well. Played 2 seasons at Duke, so he is 20 years old, coming in at 6'11 at the combine with a 6'11 wingspan. Now, technically, his wingspan was a quarter inch shorter than his height, so he has a negative wingspan. That's not something that you love to see because it really says a lot about his lack of defensive potential, I'll say. And he comes in at 230 pounds, so he's not a super big guy either. At his second season at Duke, he did average 16 points a night and 8 boards, shot 50% from the field and 35% from 3 on 3 attempts. Now, that's kind of the thing that gets everyone interested. Oh, you got a 7-footer that can stretch the floor? Sign me up. But most of his shots came at the rim. I mean, look what he took, 12 shots a game. And how many were threes? So that means 9 of his shots a night were pretty much coming at the rim. Now, something that does make him more different and intriguing as a prospect is it's not like all his shots were post touchers or lobs or something like that. If anything, he's really not much of a post-up player. He is able to actually use his handle to get to the rim a lot of the times. And that part I find interesting. For his size, he is very solid handling the ball. He's a guy that can get a rebound and kind of push pace after that. Now, he's not Nikola Jovic. He's not super shifty as the way. His handle's not as good. He's not as fast and agile as Nikola Jovic, but he does possess some ability to handle the ball. And for his size, I think he is very good at that now. He's able to use that ability to get to the rim. He finishes very well over there. He's also able to use those quick feet to hold his own on the defensive end. I'm not going to say he's a super switchable defender, but he can attack on closeouts without looking like a Rudy Gobert, looking foolish. He can sort of switch on to guys and do his best to stay in front of them. So his quick feet and fluidness as a big man is a positive, but it's not fast enough to say he's a great shot blocker because really he's not. He doesn't have really much of an interior presence inside at all defensively. And even offensively, I know I said he gets to the rim, but he still does get pushed around a lot. And those are kind of the reasons that I'm not super high on Kyle Filipowski because I don't feel like the Heat need a tall guy that can score, right? That's what Nikola Jovic is for. They need a big physical man that could play defense when Bam does have to switch onto a Kyrie Irving or does have to switch onto, another elite guard as Bam does so well. Every time Bam does that, the Heat get cooked by the other team's big man because they have a switch and nobody that can guard the other team's big. Kyle Filipowski is not going to be a guy that guards centers on the other team. If anything, he projects as more of a power forward in the NBA, I'd say. And if the Heat wanted a tall guy that could dribble and shoot, you got Nikola Jovic. That's kind of my point. Now, this next guy is the complete opposite of Filipowski. And it's not Kel'el Ware. It's Yves Missi, who's also projected as a late first-round pick, has some player comps of Jalen Duran, who's awesome. Also, Mark Williams, Kevon Looney, and Clint Capella. He comes in at 20 years old after his first season at Baylor, 6'11", with a very positive wingspan of 7'2". That you love to see, opposite of Kyle Filipowski, and he does come in at 230 pounds, which is actually the exact same as Filipowski, but Yves Missi is way more physical. You see here, 10 points a night, 6 rebounds at 61% shooting from the field. And if you look at that 3-point percentage, well, it's 0 because he attempted literally 0 threes in his entire time at Baylor. Now, he is 62% from the free throw line. So, again, obviously not a great shooter. Now, the whole thing with Yves Missi through my research is he literally seems like a carbon copy of any one of these player comps here, specifically Clint Capella, because he's strictly a lob threat. I mean, let me not even say like he's a pick and lob monster. Right? He's a guy that plays above the rim, has a very quick second step, super high motor, but that's about where the extent of his offensive abilities end. He only had 3 assists in his entire season at Baylor. So that reminds me of some Hassan Whiteside tendencies. But on the same regard, he's also an elite shot blocker, very athletic, so he moves his feet well. He's a guy that guards in space much better than a guy like Kyle Filipowski, and he's just an overall very dominant and athletic defensive center. That, I think, fits the Heat way more than the skill set that Kyle Filipowski brings. So that's really the extent of what he is. Obviously, he's a safe floor, low ceiling type of guy, but I think on the Miami Heat, he can contribute right away in a way that the Heat need more than Filipowski. That's why I prefer Yves Missi. But above all those guys, I do have Kel'el Ware, who you guys already know. I think he was my actually fourth most wanted guy in my rankings for the Heat. I had Isaiah Collier, Jared McCain, Tristan Da Silva, and then Kel'el Ware. The only reason why is because there were some questions about his motor. And for a guy that's 20 years old, he's still very young. He is a bit of a work in progress and maybe not ready to contribute right away. I think a guy with, questions about his work ethic doesn't bode well for him improving in, rapidly in the NBA, because the Heat have the best development staff, right? But what good is it if the player doesn't want to work hard to get that way? And I really like the whole idea of Heat culture and how all these guys fit so well. I think so that's why the chemistry is so well, and we see them have postseason success. So it just doesn't seem like Kel'el Ware fits that. Now, I don't know him personally. This is all just fodder. So it's possible none of it is true. And if that's the case, well, then he would be an amazing pick at number 15, right around where he's projected in the mid-first round. Has some player comps of Jared Allen, Brook Lopez, and Miles Turner. For obvious reasons, all of those guys would fit pretty well on the Miami Heat. He still is young, 20 years old, 6'11", with a positive wingspan as well, coming in at 7'2", and also weighs 230 pounds. So you see here, he is very... Did I mess this up? Okay, I had to update my slideshow here. This is just a little makeshift thing to talk about these guys. But anyways, he's 7 foot with a 7'5" wingspan, so a very positive wingspan as opposed to Kyle Filipowski. And obviously that means he's a very good... It doesn't mean he's a very good shot blocker, but it means he has the tools to be one. And in college, his second season, sophomore season for him, he did average almost 2 blocks a night. So he's very good defensively. He's super fast, super athletic. He can even stretch the floor a little bit. He only shot 1.3 threes a game as a sophomore, but he knocked them down at a 43% clip. Only 63% from the free throw line that season, 4.5 attempts a game. So that doesn't bode well for him being a shooter. But I do think the form on his jump shot looks really nice. Full extension, great arc, the whole 9 yards. He literally, I think, is the perfect prospect for the Miami Heat. You just got to hope that his, the motor concerns are overstated. Because they've even said things like he's a guy that lets his offense affect his defense. If he's missed a few shots, he takes, a couple plays off, can show lapses in energy in like an entire second half. Things like that just don't make me super excited about him. But again, outside of that, he's a switchable defender. He's a true 7-footer, a dominant rebounder, 10 boards a game here. Just like Yves Missi, another pick and lob monster, but except he can stretch the floor. He's literally the perfect prospect. And if the Heat take him, that'll have me super excited, because that means they did their homework and they trust him to be a Heat culture player. But anyways, that's really all I got to say for part 3, the final part. Am I getting the Miami Heat a big man series? So make sure y'all check out the other 2 parts on potential trade targets and potential free agents that the Heat could sign. Let me know all y'all thoughts down below. I will have some full videos on all these draft prospects coming out eventually if they didn't already. I think I'm going to release the Filipowski and Yves Missi videos after this at some point. So subscribe so you don't miss it. I'm grinding to hit 5K subs by the start of next season. Like the video, comment, all that stuff helps the algorithm. I'm done yapping. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.